సో లాస్ట్ క్లాస్లో మనం డిస్కస్ చేసింది, we have discussed about HTML elements like table, list items and other elements. Okay, form elements, basic elements. Today we will discuss more form elements, more important form elements. Okay. More about forms. Let us see. So yesterday, what is a text box, what is a checkbox, what is a radio button, kind of things we have seen. Today we will see one more thing called text area, select boxes, all these things we have seen. Today we will be seeing about text area also. Let me write it down. Check out what did I do yesterday. Please mute yourself, anybody, check it out. Okay, so yesterday we have seen select element with the options. Okay, but you have to remember one more thing also, that is value. In the options element, we have an attribute called value. Value is equal to, you can mention some unique value for it. Okay, generally when we submit the form, okay, we will come to that submission. When we submit the form, the values of the form will be sent to the server. So at that time, whatever the value you have, whatever the value attribute you have assigned with, okay, that value will be sent to the server. Suppose if you don't mention any value, the option text or content will be sent as an value. Okay, the word value is very important. Okay, even in the radio buttons also, you have to mention the value here. Value is equal to male, value is equal to female. So when you select the particular radio button, this value will be given to the form. Hello all, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so like this we can actually mention the value. I will tell you what is the most importance by clicking on the submit button. I will explain you, just wait. But you should know there is an attribute called value where you can mention the value for that particular selection, okay. Even for checkboxes also you have value. When you select that particular checkbox, when you check that checkbox, that value will be assigned to the form. Okay, now apart from select box, input boxes and all, you have one more concept, one more input form element called text area. So text area is a big text box, that's it. Okay, where you can give more number of values. Okay, for example, let me localhost :8080/elements, it seems. Okay, so here you have first name where we enter. Here we can select our gender. Here I'm checkbox and Sri Lanka. Okay, so this is checkbox. Generally for writing addresses, writing reviews or comments, we generally use the checkbox. Okay, when you have more than one line, when you have more than one string or one simple word, right, then we go for text area. Okay, this is the fundamental elements. What do we have in the radio, I mean, in the HTML. But in the HTML5, we have better ways of form handling. Okay, to understand that, let us create another page for forms. Forms. Okay, let me start from the scratch. Here I am discussing only about forms. So as I told you, forms are basically to take the input from the browser. So the input may not be only one element or one value. The input can be multiple values or hundred, I mean, more number of values. So all those values should be grouped together into one unit, or they should be collected into one part, and we call it as a form, and we call it as a form. Okay, sometimes in the same application you have, or in the same website you may have more than one form also. Suppose if you write, you I mean, how do you separate one form to another form? By using forms. Okay, so you have to use the first form element to group all the form elements. So input type is equal to text, and to keep the label before this input box, you have to use label first name. Okay, of course the for and all are there. Okay, just to have save. Okay, suppose now I have to request localhost colon 8080 slash forms or forms dot html. So here first name and last name are coming under one particular form. But guys, tell me, this first name and last name, I mean to say the input elements, are inline elements or block level elements? What kind of elements they are?
Inline.
Thank you. But all of you, please remember, I mean, think over, don't wait for the answers. Don't just wait for the answers. Just remember. Just think about it. Why they, suppose, why they, if somebody said they both are inline elements, that means input elements are inline elements. But you should know why they are inline elements.
Hillary, I can't assign this to you, but I'm assigning it to your group, and then you can grab it.
Renuka, are you talking to me? మీరు నాతో మాట్లాడుతున్నారా?
Oh, sorry.
Block elements occupy complete width.
Very good. So both the elements are coming together in the same line. So we can understand that both are inline elements. Okay. Now, suppose if I want one after the other, then you have to make use of break here. Okay. So why did I use this slash over here? Okay. See, even for input element also, you have to put a slash at the end. This is very important for React developers because React will not allow any element without closing. So every element should be having a closing tag. So all the elements will have a closing tag, but some of the elements need not to have a closing tag. For example, input element. Input element will not have a closing tag. Okay. Why? Because see, we need to know the boundaries for first name. So where the label starts and where the label ends. ఎక్కడి నుంచి label start అయ్యి ఎక్కడికి end అవుతుంది అనేది మనకు ఒక బౌండరీ క్రియేట్ చేసుకోవడం కోసం we have label, open tag and close tag. Okay. How about input text? Input box. Input type is equal to text. Doesn't have boundary. You need not to put any content. Okay. But whatever we are writing here, that is not content, that is value. Whatever we are writing, this is not content, it is called value. Okay. So input box doesn't have the closing tag. Okay. So in such cases, in the open tag itself, at the end, you have to put the slash. Okay. So those elements which doesn't have the closing tag are called as empty element. Elements which doesn't have the closing tag are called as empty elements. Okay. Right. So be careful. Use this BR smartly. Okay. First name and last name. Now let me have the gender also. Yeah. Oh, label gender. First of all, this won't work. Why? These are all input elements, like input text elements. So we have to make use of radio elements. Gender, male, female, and others. So I'm able to select all the radio buttons. How can I get only one selection out of all the given radio buttons?
By using value
Every-
attribute.
By using?
Value attribute.
Okay.
By using
ID
same name
ID
as
name
attribute.
same.
By using name, not by using value attribute. Okay. Name is gender. Of course, fur doesn't have any relationship with that, but just so the same name should be carried to all the form elements. So now if you observe carefully, yes, only one element can be selected. So these kind of things, if you don't concentrate, yesterday I have already discussed about this point. If you don't concentrate on it, when I'm teaching JavaScript and React, or Angular, you guys will be so confused. Okay. So the problem is not about my teaching or about the React. The problem is with your concentration, with your commitment towards the course. Okay. See, I am not pointing out anybody. My point is, if you don't concentrate, or if you don't practice, or if you don't really observe all these things, then it will be difficult for you to understand React over there. Okay. Then don't blame me. Then don't just show the point finger to me. Okay. Finger pointing to me. So just understand why I am discussing all these small points. All of a sudden, when these all things should be discussed, or these all things should be used in the React again, at that time, without this knowledge, it will be too difficult for you. Okay. So by that time you start struggling. Okay, thank you. Okay, next. Here, once we collected the information, we have to send this information to the server. Okay, so ultimately your data will be stored in the server only, right? So to send the data into the server, I have created the form, I have filled my details, and I keep on saying, Abba, please, Abba, form will do. Please go, no, go, no. This doesn't make any sense. This doesn't make any sense. Okay. So we need a button to send the form data into the server. So first we need a button, and of course you have to say type is equal to submit. Okay, then this button becomes submit button. Of course, those people who already know something, please control your anxiety. I will discuss that. Suppose, okay, don't worry. You need not to write send as the name. You can say save or something like that. Anything. So then you can see this. A button with the type is equal to submit. Now you just now carefully observe this. I have entered Praveen, Gubbala, and mail and save. So what happens is it will try to send the data to the server. Okay. But that address has to be given. Server in the sense, whatever the server we are using to serve this web page is also a server, but that is just a web server that receives the request, but it don't know what to do with that. So we have to send it to a program or an API or an endpoint. Okay. So generally that will be a different server. So that address where the field data should go to, where the field data should be sent to, that address should be given over here under action attribute. Here I have to give that data. Okay. So while I'm giving that data, action is equal to slash, or action is equal to http:// localhost : that is running on some other port number, something like 4000 / add student. Generally it looks like this. Okay, careful. So this particular action is very important. Action will have the address to where we want to send the data. Action attribute will hold the data. Okay, hold the data. Hold the URL to where we are sending the data. Today I will show you that also. Whether it is sent or not, I will show you that also. Don't worry. Anybody having a question? So now I just refresh this page. I write down a different first name, that is Nirmal Kumar and save. So now as soon as I clicked on the save button, you can see, of course, in my computer, there is no server running on localhost 4000. That is a different case, leave it. And if you observe, it is whatever the data, once I have clicked on the save button or that submit button, sir, the name of the button is save, the type of the button is submit. Okay, so observe that. Once I click on the submit button, it is sending the request to which page? Localhost colon 4000 slash add student. Is it really sending the request to this particular page? Yes, absolutely. With a question mark. And after that, you have some values. Gender is equal to on. But why only gender? This gender is about fur or name. So instead of, so I just remove this gender here, or else fur, I will change it to GN, something like that. So now I refresh this page. So whatever the data after question mark is going, that is gender. This is nothing but the name I have given here. But where about my Nirmal and Kumar or ASD in WF? Why they are not sending?
Since it doesn't have the for element, for attribute.
No, 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 not because of that.
I think there is no server, right, for receiving.
సర్వర్ లేకపోతే మరి జెండర్ వెళ్తుంది కదా.
Gender is equal to on, దాని గురించా?
We have not specified the
Value,
name attribute.
value.
ఇంకా యా
You need to give the name attribute to the first name and last name. Maybe.
correct. So every input element, whatever you want to send, that input element should have a name attribute. Give me 1 minute. Yeah, sorry. So name attribute is very important. You have to give the name. Yeah, absolutely. Suppose if you are trying to send also, yeah, data will be sent, but the data is what? You should know what is the data, right? You should know what is the data. What type, I mean, for example, Praveen. Praveen is first name or last name or his qualification. Maybe you know Praveen is first name, అది కూడా తెలియదా సార్ సర్వర్ కా మాత్రం అని అనుకోకండి. Servers are not smart, they are dumb. You know what is Praveen. If I say Ruby, what do you say? Ruby is a framework or Ruby is a language, or Ruby is a girl name, or Ruby is a boy name, or Ruby is a gemstone, Ruby is a dog name. What is Ruby then? Guys, give me a minute. Huh? I'll be back in 5 minutes. So inside the name, you have to give the value. I mean, the name. Okay. So after that, what is the result? We'll see this. Let us save and go back to the main page and refresh and refreshing is very important because just by changing here, ఇక్కడ చేంజ్ చేసినంత మాత్రాన ఇక్కడ ఆటోమేటిక్గా చేంజ్ అవుతుంది. React లో ఆ ఫీచర్ ఉంది కానీ ప్యూర్ HTML లో లేదు. We don't have that feature in the pure HTML, automatic changes. So here I am entering Praveen and Gubbala and mail and save. So now let us see the difference in the URL. So now the FN, the Praveen is also going with the name attribute value, that is FN, and then gender is on. But why the last name is not going? The reason is it doesn't have the name. So LN gives you the name. Okay, I hope you get it easily. But how about this gender? I'm selecting the male, but the gender is going as on. Why it is going as on? Let us apply differently. So Jaya, Kumari, and female. If I click on the save button, you can see now, even if I have selected the female, still the gender is saying on. Okay. So here again, you have to understand the importance of value. So without the word value, you can't have it. So when we select the male radio button, what the value should be taken for the selection? That is M. When I select the value as when I select the female radio button, what is the value it should be considered? That is F and O. So now let us refresh the page and write down Himaja, last name Faz, and female. And now if I click on the save button, you can happily observe the data is now sending in a proper way. So here the gender is not going as on, it is going as F. Okay, just to show you the difference, I made it M, F, and O, but you have to say clearly M-A-L-E male, F-E-M-A-L-E female, O-T-H-E-R. Okay, so then it will go properly. Okay, this is about radio buttons. How about the check boxes? The same way, you have to give the name as well as the value. Okay, so when you select it, it will be given. Okay, but let us see how the select works. We have to observe every point. It is not only 1 point or 2 points. We have to observe every point. Let us suppose select name is equal to COU and TRY country. ID, okay, right now I don't want ID. Option. Without value, if I try to submit, does that submission take the selected option or not? Yes, it will select the option India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan. Okay. So when I refresh this page, okay, let me keep a break. So here, Praveen, Kubla, mail, Sri Lanka, and save. So now you observe in the URL, the data is going as country Sri Lanka. So here it is not just on or something. Yes, it could take the content. Okay, it can happily take the content. Now, what if I give the value? So when I give the value, that will be going as the value. Okay, so generally we'll keep the values like this. So now I'm selecting only Pakistan and send just for your input. Let us see. I have not filled others. So if you see country is equal to PAK. So if you provide the value, then it will take up the value and that will be sent, not the text what you have in the options. So this is also needed. Okay. Hope you understood this aspects. These are all different form fields and how do we use them. Okay. Next, these are all HTML, basic HTML elements. In the HTML5, we have few more input elements. They are like this. For example, you have to take my date of birth. So for that, I can keep a text box, but a text box, I may enter a wrong date also. So HTML5 is providing a new input type called date. So that will help us to select the date under the calendar. So here, for that, again, input type only, but the type is not text, it is date. So here, if you don't apply the breaks, it will not good properly. Okay, it will look now. So here DOB is having a input type called date. So when I click on the calendar, you can actually select the date. Okay, so the selection of the date is in month, day, date and year format. Okay, this is again a new type. Sometimes you want to put something else, that is, for example, let me write down children. Type is equal to number. You can provide the type as number. So of course you have to give the names also, name individually, but I just want to show you how does it look like. When I click on the children, as I mentioned, the type is equal to number. You can give only the number. Even if you type the characters, it will not take the characters. Okay, like this you have a possibility of take only the number values also. Okay, right. The same way, there is one more type also that is called email. Okay, so let us take it. Email type is equal to email. Of course, you need not to mention email address. So save, see here, email address and the text box. Here you have to enter only the email ID. Suppose I am entering the email ID as Praveen and enter. It is not the right email ID, but on clicking on the save button, your form actually provides an error message. This is called validation. These are the default HTML5 validations. Okay, now I am coming to the next concept called validation. Okay, see guys, I want to give you the flow. I don't want to specifically mention now the topic is validation. This is not the point. My point is the usage. I want to observe the usage, where the use is, what is the use. So here I have email address and I have typed the wrong email address, and if I click on save, it is showing the email ID is not in the format. Email input type don't check whether that email is existing or not. It is just going to check the given text, whatever you have entered, that is a proper email ID or not. Is it having @ symbol or not? That is the only check it will perform. Okay, but you should be under a form. Even I've had this kind of problem sometimes, especially in the Angular. we generally don't use the form keyword. I mean, form, we don't use the form element. We directly write all these things, all the input elements directly inside a division. At that time, default validations will not work. Okay, sometimes. Okay, so why they are not working? That is all because of form. Okay, I will explain you Angular, how Angular treats the validations and all. That is a different case. But here I'm just saying, while you are practicing, all the input boxes should be under form. Suppose if you are not under form, then the validations are not going to be, I mean, validations are not going to be checked. The default validations will not get performed until and unless your all your input fields are under form element. Okay, form element lo lekapothe ee input fields ki validations check avvavu. Right. Now, what are the validations apart from email? Are there any other validations? Most of the time, forms will have a validation called required. So first name, last name, DOB, children, all these things are required, right? Suppose, imagine these are all required. So how do we make these are all required field? Okay, I have entered a right email ID format. Sorry, save, refresh. I have entered right email ID format, and if I click on the save button, it is getting submitted. It is getting submitted to the URL. It should not get submitted to the URL until and unless I fill the first name. In such scenarios, we have to apply the validations to these all form fields. How do you make the validation to the form field? Are you getting me? So for that, you have to put input type is equal to required. Input type is equal to required. Okay. Oh, give me a minute. Input type is equal to required. So what will happen if I say required attribute directly like this? Then what will happen? Refresh the page, and when you click on the save button, first it will say, please fill out this field. Please fill out this field. That means it is validating. It is until and unless you put the value, it will not allow you to submit. Whatever you feel, these fields are required fields. You put the required attribute into the input field as a validator. Okay, I am not going beyond this. Even, of course, one more validator I will show you. There are a few more validators like min length is equal to 5. So the first name should be minimum of 3 letters. If I click on the save button, the HTML browser itself giving us a validation error called please lengthen this text to 5 characters or more. Are you getting me? Like this. So minimum, if I give more than 5, it doesn't complain. It doesn't say anything to us. Hope you got my point. Next, this is min length. Generally, min value can be given to number based inputs. For example, min is equal to minimum of 2. Just if I try to enter 1 and save, save and refresh the page. If I enter 1 and save, okay, first it will ask us to fill this. Yeah, here value must be greater than or equal to 2. You can't give less than 2. So that error has been given over here. Okay, like this. Okay, next, you have an input field called password. type is equal to sir, how do I know how many different types are there? See, okay, the number of types are getting updated frequently. Okay, and primary types I have already discussed. One more type is already there, is also there, that is password type. Input type is equal to password. You should be smart enough to search for it. Okay, do we have any such kind of type or not? Okay, if you want to enter the password, for example, here input label is password, type is equal to text. So if you mention password type is equal to text, the password looks there. But here, if I mention type is equal to password, whatever you have entered here, whatever you have entered here, that will not visible over there. Okay, so this is how we can check the password. But generally, we apply some rules for entering the password. What are the rules we have to enter the password, guys? Generally, whenever you are entering the password, you must be identified
Small letters, capital letters.
at least one capital letter, at least one lowercase letter, or at least one what you say, special character. These kind of rules are there, correct? So when we have the rules like this, okay, how do we apply those rules into my password? Yes, they are called regular expressions. Okay, regular expression in JavaScript for password. So generally Stack Overflow is giving us that regular expression. See guys, in some kind of projects, almost all 3 years or 4 years back, I worked on regular expression there, where there are so many need of regular expressions. Then I learned it, but after that even I forgot it. I hardly need some set of password, one only for passwords. Okay, so here generally I use not this one. So this is the regular expression I have to check whether the password is following the rules and not. So here in the password, I can mention input type is equal to password. Okay, 1 second. Sorry, not regular expression, it is pattern. Sorry, it is pattern. So in the pattern, I have to submit that pattern. So here I have submitted, I have given the pattern. So when I am typing, when I have given the password, it will check, the pattern will check whether the password is in the pattern or not. So refresh the page. I'm typing some password and okay, first name is mandatory. Please match the requested format. So how to display that label? In the label below, you can display minimum of 8 characters or something like that. But here the password is not in the proper format. That is minimum of 8 letters or something like that. India@123. Now, if I click on save, it is not mentioned any error over there. So like this, you can mention the password pattern. Yes, you can also mention, see, you have to apply these all things. You have to apply them. regular expression for password, regular expression for email ID, regular expression for first name. All these things can be mentioned properly in it. Okay. So these are the different aspects what you have to really understand in the form. One more aspect, I mean, two more attributes I have to, not only two more, one more input type is also there. Sorry. Yeah. So here I have to update my DOB. After that, I have to update my profile pic. So what is the profile? I mean, how to select a profile pic? Input type is equal to text and profile pic doesn't give you. Okay, here I have used date. Text is not the right type. You have to use the file type. Input type is equal to file. So here it will give you a button to select the profile pic. So this has come because of the file type. Input type is equal to file. When I click on that box, it will open the browser and you can select any one of the pics and you can apply that. So now the profile pic got selected. For your information, okay, when you try to upload normal form data, you don't need any big configuration into the form, but especially when you are trying to upload a media file, that is either an image or an audio or an video or a graphic or any file, especially if it comes under file, you should also mention in the request that this request is having some MIME content. Okay, so you should have a special attribute called enc type is equal to multipart / form data. So to the server, you have to mention this. The form may have some multi-part data. What do you mean by multi-part data? These texts and all are form data, and your files comes under multi-part data. We call it as MIME data, multi-purpose internet mail extension. Okay, so that particular attribute should be given, and the meaning of this enc type is encoding type. It is not encryption type. Don't say this word to the interviewer. They will be very annoyed. చాలా కోప్పడిపోతారు. ENC type అంటే కూడా మీకు తెలియదా అని. ENC type means encoding type. It is not encryption type. Encoding type, when you are sending the data, the encoding what you have to follow in the server, you have to mention there. That is multi-part data. Full stack people need this very much. మనము సర్వర్ కి పంపించిన తర్వాత సర్వర్ రిసీవ్స్ యువర్ డేటా, రైట్? దేర్ server need to know, yes, this form data is also having some multi-part data, something like that. Okay, so node లో మనకి separate గా ఇంకొక లైబ్రరీ ఉంటుంది, అది యూస్ చేసి మనం రాయాల్సి ఉంటుంది కోడ్ బ్యాక్ ఎండ్ లో. ఎనీవేస్, ఓకే, నెక్స్ట్, దిస్ ఇస్ వన్ పాయింట్. అండ్ వన్ మోర్ పాయింట్ I have to mention is, one second. Yeah, one more point I want to mention here is, the data is being sent in the URL. This URL is, in the URL, after question mark, the data is being sent. This data is called as query. This is called as query. After question mark, whatever there, it is called what? Query. And in this query, you have properties like fn, ln, this is also ln. Huh? Okay, 1 second. Name of the select. India should be. Oh,
No, the password I mentioned as well.
password ni kuda nenu ln అని రాశాను. That is the wrong. That is pwd అనేది పెట్టండి. So here country ID, okay. Oh, yeah. సో వీటిని ఏమంటారంటే క్వెరీ అంటారు. దీని మొత్తాన్ని క్వెరీ అంటారు. దీంట్లో ఉన్న ఈచ్ అండ్ ఎవ్రీ ప్రాపర్టీ ఈస్ కాల్డ్ యాజ్ పారామ్. క్వెరీ పారామ్. What is it called? Query params. Okay, query params. So we are sending that data under URL. Okay, and there is one more approach called when you are sending the request, only this URL will not go. Guys, try to understand this. When you send the request, only the URL will not go. Along with the URL, so much of information will be going. Try to realize this. This is the only URL you are looking into. Along with the URL, referrer policy, request header, DNT, referrer. There are so much of other information is also going, my dear. This is called as headers. These are all called as headers. And also along with that, we can also send a payload. So that is going as a payload, of course. Okay, as a query string parameters. Whatever the data is going as payload. But sometimes you need, not sometimes, we should send this kind of data securely sometimes. So in such cases, you can make use of the method is equal to post. So this is HTTP method. While you are sending the data to the server, or while you are sending a request to the server, the request can have different type of method. So this method will be used by the server to understand how to handle the request. Okay, so this you will understand it later, but first of all, whenever you are trying to submit the data to the server, then use the method called post. Okay, when you want to get the data from the server, then use the method called get. When you want to update the data to the server, then use the method called put. When you, that means already the data is there, but you want to modify the data. In such cases, you have to use the method called put. When the server is you want to delete the data in the server, then you have to make use of the method called delete. So you can mention these methods. Of course, form allows only get and post, not put and delete. Okay, so if you want to send such kind of requests, then you have to make use of JavaScript. Okay, anyways, you will learn it in the future, but the point is, you can, if you mention the method as post, there will be some difference here. See, So when this is the request going on. In that request, the data is sent as form data. Earlier it was sent as, can you understand this? Now it is sending as a form data. Previously it was sent as query string data. In the payload, the data is sent as a form data. Can you see that? Hello? So that will not be visible in as a query string. That will not be going in the query string. Okay, multi-part form data. So post will, with the post method, we send the data as a form data in payload. If you don't mention the method, it will take it as a get method, and when we send the data, it will send it in the query string, in the URL itself. Okay, so depend upon the situation, you have to make use of it. And one more thing is, try to understand the meaning of the method name, get method and post method. Get means what? English lo get ante enti? Get a coffee for me అంటే ఏంటి? గెట్ అనే వర్డ్ ఎప్పుడు యూజ్ చేస్తాం? నీకు ఏదైనా కావాలి అని అడగడానికి యూజ్ చేస్తాం. యూజ్ ద గెట్ మెథడ్ టు గెట్ సంథింగ్. పోస్ట్ మెథడ్ అనేది ఎప్పుడు యూజ్ చేస్తాం? వెన్ యూ వాంట్ టు సెండ్ ద డేటా టు దట్. పోస్ట్ అంటే మీనింగే అది, పోస్ట్ చేస్తున్నాం, సెండ్ చేస్తున్నాం. పుట్ చేస్తున్నాం అని అంటే మీనింగ్ ఏంటి? పుట్, ఐఎమ్ పుట్టింగ్ దిస్ అని అంటే ఆల్రెడీ సంథింగ్ ఈస్ దేర్. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్, ఐఎమ్ పుట్టింగ్ of course ఇంగ్లీష్ మీకు అర్థం కావడానికి ఇట్లా మాట్లాడుతున్నా. ఓకే, సో పుట్టింగ్ అనేది ఉండదు. ఐ జస్ట్ వాంట్ టు ప్లేస్ సంథింగ్ ఇన్ ద బౌల్. సో బౌల్ ఉంది కాబట్టి దాంట్లో పుట్ చేయడం. డిలీట్, అఫ్ కోర్స్ దట్ ఈస్ సెల్ఫ్ ఎక్స్ప్లెనేటరీ. డిలీట్ విల్ బి యూజ్డ్ ఫర్ డిలీటింగ్ సంథింగ్. సో when you are coming into the forms, these many things you should know, especially to meet the requirements of Angular, Node and Express. That means bigger applications, especially Angular or React. Whenever you are looking for the forms, these all things are needed very much. Okay, any questions please?
Sir, it means update, right?
Yeah, updation, modification or updation.
Okay, existing data we are going to update with put method.
Yes.
And encoding type, this is a common phrase we use for all type of forms, or you change again? Encoding type, multi-part, / form data, etc. So this phrase would be common for
when you have the I mean to say, when you have the files to be sent, మీ ఫామ్ డేటాలో ఫైల్స్ ఉన్నప్పుడు బెటర్ టు యూజ్ దిస్ మల్టీపార్ట్. నాకైతే మల్టీపార్ట్ ఇప్పటి వరకు అన్ని సందర్భాల్లోనూ సరిపోయింది. ఈవెన్ బ్లాబ్ ఆల్సో వీ కెన్ సెండ్ ఇట్. ఓకే, బ్లాబ్ ఫార్మాట్. బట్ ఇఫ్ యూ డోంట్ హ్యావ్ ఎనీ ఫైల్ ఫార్మాట్ టు సెండ్, ఇఫ్ ఇట్ ఈస్ ఓన్లీ ప్యూర్ ఫామ్ డేటా, ఓకే, దెన్ డోంట్ యూజ్ ఎనీ ఎన్కోడింగ్ టైప్. ఈజ్ మై పాయింట్ క్లియర్?
ఇక్కడ మన ఇమేజ్ యూస్ చేసాం కాబట్టి
yes. Okay,
సో మెథడ్ పోస్ట్ మెథడ్ అనే అట్రిబ్యూట్ పాస్ చేస్తే ఆటోమేటిక్ గా డేటా అనేది సెక్యూర్డ్ గా పాస్ అవుతుంది.
నేను అది ఆ ఇంప్రెషన్ మీకు రాకూడదనే ఉద్దేశంతో నేను అదంతా ఓపెన్ చేసి చూపించింది. ఒక్క లైన్ లో నేను పడ్డ కష్టం అంతా తీసి పడేస్తారు. ఓకే, ఎందుకంటే అది సెక్యూర్ అని కాదండి, అక్కడ పేలోడ్ లో వెళ్ళడం ఎట్లా వెళ్తుంది. ఇంతకు ముందు క్వెరీ స్ట్రింగ్ లో వెళ్ళింది, పేలోడ్ లో క్వెరీ స్ట్రింగ్ అని కనపడింది. డేటా ఈజ్ సెండింగ్ యాజ్ అ క్వెరీ స్ట్రింగ్. మనం ఫామ్ డేటా యూజ్ చేసినప్పుడు ఎట్లా వెళ్తుంది డేటా? ఎన్క్రిప్టెడ్ కాదు. when we are sending the post method, we are sending it as a form data. ఇంతకు ముందు క్వెరీ స్ట్రింగ్ డేటాలో వెళ్ళేది, ఇప్పుడు ఫామ్ డేటాలో వెళ్తుంది. ఆ వర్డ్ చెప్పండి మీరు, ఫామ్ డేటా. ఓకే, ఎందుకంటున్నానంటే నేను ఇట్లా, ఇప్పుడు మీకు కూడా ఒక 10 years 15 years బ్యాక్ మూవీ ఫార్మాట్ లో గనక మూవీ తీస్తే మీకు నచ్చుద్దా? నచ్చదు కదా.
Yes, yes.
సో అట్లాగే ఇప్పుడు చెప్పే ఆన్సర్స్ అన్ని ఎట్లా ఉండాలి అని అంటే, అరే భలే తెలిసే వీళ్ళకి అని అనుకోవాలి ఇంటర్వ్యూ చేసేవాళ్ళు. అంటే ఆ పాత ఓల్డ్ గా సెక్యూర్గా ఉంటుంది. అంటే నేను ఆ ఇంప్రెషన్ ని మీ మైండ్ లోంచి తీసేయాలి. మీరు కొత్త ఆన్సర్స్ చెప్పాలి, కొత్తగా మీరు ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేయాలి, కొత్తగా ఎక్స్ప్రెస్ చేయాలి అని ఎక్స్పెక్ట్ చేస్తున్నారు అందరూ ఇంటర్వ్యూస్ లో. అందుకనే నేను కొద్దిగా స్ట్రాంగ్ గా చెప్తున్నాను ఈ పాయింట్. ఓకే, సో అక్కడ ఏంటంటే మీరు చెప్పాల్సింది ఏంటంటే, సార్ when we use the post method, data goes as a form data in the payload. When we don't use the post method, by default it will take as get method. So in the get, if you send the data through get method, the data goes in the query string under URL. అనే కంప్లీట్ సెంటెన్స్ మీరు ఫామ్ చేయగలగాలి. అదంత ఈజీ కాదు, బట్ యు హ్యావ్ టు. అంతే, అర్థమైందా? నేనేమి మిమ్మల్ని కమెంట్ చేయడానికి కాదండోయ్, మీరు బెటర్ గా ఆన్సర్స్ ఇవ్వాలనే నా తాపత్రయం అంతా. హోప్ యు ఆర్ క్లియర్ అబౌట్ మై పాయింట్.
If you don't use any method, then it will send data in a get format.
Yes.
That is query string.
Yes.
Okay.
సో మీకు
Yeah.
ఈ రికార్డింగ్ వచ్చిన తర్వాత నేను చెప్తున్న లైన్స్ అన్ని మీరు రాసుకోండి. ఓకే, ఈ లైన్స్ మాట్లాడండి మీరు. రైట్.
సో ఇందాక కనెక్షన్ మిస్ అయ్యి విషయం అదే కొంచెం మ్యాటర్ మిస్ అయ్యాను. ఒకసారి మళ్ళీ ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేస్తారా?
ఏంటది?
ఇక్కడ మెథడ్ అట్రిబ్యూట్ దగ్గర డేటా మళ్ళీ చెక్ చేసాం కదా, హెడర్స్ పేలోడ్ దగ్గర, అదే అక్కడి నుంచి.
మీరు ఏమనుకోకపోతే ఒకసారి వీడియో చూడగలరా, మీకు మరి ఇబ్బంది లేకపోతే?
ఓకే సార్, అది షేర్ చేయండి.
డోంట్ మైండ్, ఆల్రెడీ నేను చాలా ఇంటెన్సిటీతో చెప్తున్నాను. మళ్ళీ అదే మీరు ఇప్పటికి రెండోసారి మూడోసారి చెప్పాను నేను అదే పాయింట్. ఓకే,
సో చిన్న డౌట్ సార్, వెబ్ సర్వర్ ఇక్కడ హెచ్టిటిపి సర్వర్ అని రన్ చేస్తున్నాం కదా, అది మనం ఎక్కడైతే HTML పేజెస్ HTML స్క్రిప్ట్ రాస్తున్నామో ఆ పాత్ లోకి వెళ్ళి మనం రన్ చేయాలి.
అవునండి, అవును.
ఆ పాత్ లోకి వెళ్ళి HTTP సర్వర్ రన్ చేస్తే ఆటోమేటిక్ గా ఇది సర్వర్ రన్ అవుతుంది. సో మనం అక్కడ లోకల్ హోస్ట్ లో మనం ఓపెన్ చేయగలుగుతాం బ్రౌజర్ లో.
అవునండి, అవును.
మరి అది పోర్ట్ నెంబర్ చేంజ్ అవుతుంది సార్, 8088.
అవునండి, 8080 ఎవరైనా ఏదైనా వేరే సర్వర్ ఆక్యుపై చేస్తే మీకు ఆటోమేటిక్ గా HTTP సర్వరే ఇంకొక పోర్ట్ నెంబర్ ఇస్తుంది. మీకు ఇక్కడ కనపడుతుంది, ఇదిగోండి ఏ పోర్ట్ లో రన్ అవుతుంది అనేది మీకు ఇక్కడ క్లియర్ గా అవైలబుల్ ఆన్ అనేది కూడా కనపడుతుంది. మొత్తం చూడండి ఒకసారి. ఓకే, దీంట్లో అదర్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ కూడా ఉంది, దీన్ని కూడా చూసి మీరు దానికి తగ్గట్టుగా మీరు మెన్షన్ చేయాల్సి ఉంటుంది.
అదేంటి సార్ కోడ్ డాట్ అని ఇచ్చారు, అంటే లైన్ నెంబర్ కొంచెం HTTP సర్వర్ పైన కోడ్ డాట్ అని ఇచ్చారు. కోడ్ డాట్
ఈ ఫోల్డర్
కమాండ్,
ఇది ఒక కమాండ్ అన్నమాట. విజువల్ స్టూడియో కోడ్ ఓపెన్ చేయడానికి ఇది ఒక కమాండ్. కోడ్ స్పేస్ డాట్ అని ఇస్తే ఈ ఫోల్డర్ లో ఉన్న ఫైల్స్ అన్ని డైరెక్ట్ గా విజువల్ స్టూడియో కోడ్ లో ఓపెన్ అయిపోతాయి. ఇట్లా ఎడిటర్ ఓపెన్ చేసుకోవడానికి ఆ ఫోల్డర్ లో ఎడిటర్ ఓపెన్ చేసుకోవాలి, లేకపోతే ఎడిటర్ ఓపెన్ చేసుకుని ఇక్కడ ఓపెన్ వర్క్ స్పేస్ ఫైల్ ఇవన్నీ
నావిగేట్ చేసుకుంటూ వెళ్ళాలి.
ఇన్స్టెడ్ ఆఫ్ దట్ ఇక్కడ మనం ఆ ఫోల్డర్ కి మాన్యువల్ గా వెళ్ళిపోయి నేను కోడ్ స్పేస్ డాట్ అని ఇచ్చేస్తే అది ఓపెన్ అయిపోతుంది.